Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Vivid Collectibles. Today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and comparison on two quarter scale Beast statues. Of course I'm talking about the XM Studios Beast on the right side and Sideshow's premium format Beast on the left. The Sideshow one came out pretty recent. The XM one's been out for a little while. Now the Sideshow one was sculpted by a relative newcomer named Ryan Peterson, who also worked on the latest Spider-Man, along with Will Harbottle, Richard Long on the design, Kat Sapini on the paint. The XM one was sculpted, I should say, by a guy named Riccardo Federici and Maria Panfilova, who now works for Sideshow, and she's really an up-and-comer and becoming one of my favorite sculptors. Ryan Peterson, I don't know too much about him, but I do like this one, and I like their Spider-Man. So I think they're both pretty cool. As far as size-wise, Sideshow is just clearly much taller, measuring at 26.5 inches tall, about 16 inches wide, and 11 inches deep, where XM's is only about 17 inches tall, 15 inches wide, and about 11 inches deep as well. Edition size on the XM one was 650 total, with only one version, with two portraits, and Sideshow's had two versions, the collector edition with 500 total, and a exclusive edition with an additional portrait that was 250 only. So Sideshow's edition size is 100 bigger than XM's, but ultimately it's kind of a wash. Price wise, the Sideshow one is only $750 when it came out, which is recently, and XM's was about $1,000 when that came out. So one is a lot cheaper than the other. If you can find them in the aftermarket, I'm sure you can get a good deal on the XM one since it's been out a little while longer. So these are completely different takes on the same character with different paint schemes and everything. So I'm going to compare them. I'm going to start with the base, and we'll talk about the figure next, and afterwards paint and overall quality of the statue. So stay tuned as I get into my comparison and review of these two statues. Okay, so clearly we have two very different concepts, right? On the left, we have Dr. Hank McCoy in his laboratory / library, and he's balancing all these chemicals and reading material and very acrobatically showing how to balance these things, right? So that's more like the studious scientist than XM's on the right, which is basically battling a sentinel arm, and he's in beast mode, he's raging, he's in attack mode. So they're very different takes on the same character. So let's start with the base. So Sideshow's base, in my opinion, is more interesting to look at because you have him in a library setting / laboratory, and you have all of these different encyclopedias and books, and they're all pretty intricately done. There's some writing on them, there's some Easter eggs. You have the X symbol from the X Mansion all over the place. Again, more books here, some scrolls scattered about. Of course, these beakers with this beautiful paint job, this translucent like hot pink going into clear at the top for the beaker. That's amazing the way they did that. And all of these different things that are on here, right? All these interesting writing throughout. It's very cool. There's a lot of details, a lot of Easter eggs, and a lot to look at on here. The wood grain on this base is amazing. The paint job is really good. Again, look, more scrolls throughout. They look great. Different manuscripts. Then you have the evolution of man to mutant. That's a nod to Magneto on the right. Again, these beakers, the way that they're sculpted and painted is amazing. They look absolutely lifelike. So I'm showing you. You know, the writing is great. Very detailed base. Absolutely amazing. I think Sideshow did a great job. One of the better bases. Of course, it's a circular base, so maybe a little bit of a challenge to display, but ultimately you get a lot of details, and it's a very interesting base, along with that little clock that I forgot to mention. All right, XM's base, you have a sentinel hand that Beast has basically torn apart. And you have some rocky sub base, right? It's just, you know, grays and browns, and it's not all that interesting. It's pretty well made. Nothing spectacular. A little rebar there, right? The Sentinel hand itself is extremely detailed. I like the metallic paint job, really showing you these are metal hands. All the different mechanical components that make up this metallic hand are unbelievable. Wires exposed. You can see how the metal's been ripped apart and torn. It's battle damaged. The tips of the fingers have been ripped off by Beast. Very nice detail. Again, it's done very well. In my opinion, the Sentinel hand is a little bit smaller than it should be, or at least it doesn't scale with the rest of their X-Men line, because I have their Nightcrawler, and that Sentinel hand is almost twice the size of this one. More great detail in the middle there, that eye socket for that laser beam right there, destroyed, looks good. Again, very realistic, great take on the base. As far as bases go, in my opinion, Sideshow's is better and more interesting, even though XM's is well made as well. Now we're going to move on to the next phase. We're talking about the figures themselves. Alright, now we're going to turn our attention to Beast himself. The pose, the sculpt, they're obviously very different. XM's is in a battle, where Sideshow's is just basically in a science lab doing his science thing, right? He's doing a handstand, balancing the beaker and reading, while the XM is more straightforward. He's in a battle. So we're going to start with the XM. We have obviously darker color choices, but as far as just the sculpt on him himself, I really like the way they did the fur on Beast here. The fur is very consistent throughout, and you can see the hair separation. The consistency throughout the entire piece is outstanding by XM. I like the way they did that. The nails, they painted them a high gloss, so I'm not really crazy about the choice. It looks like he painted his nails, but they look good. The muscle definition is there. You can see the tendons on his foot. They look great. The anatomy is awesome again. Great attention to detail. He's a muscular guy, a little bit squatty, but you can see the tendons, you can see the muscles, the hair strands, the fur is great. His trunks have some texture, right? They're smooth, while the outer part and in the middle is textured. You can see where the belt buckles are there. The belt is separate. A little bit of paint bleed on the buckles themselves. That might be the only blemish in the whole statue. The belt itself is a leathery look. Nice mustard yellow, looks very good. Nicely painted. The trunks look good. They have, like I said, a little bit of texture to them in the center, but they look very nice. Look at the anatomy on his back, very muscular. Again, the fur, the attention to detail on the fur on XM's is really, really good. Very nicely done. The fingertips on his hands look good. Nice separation. The tendons, once again, great attention to detail. The rib cage, his six pack, big chest, puffed out, right? Again, the fur is outstanding on this. I love the way XM did that. And you can see the way his hands are straining. The tendons are stretched out. And then his portraits. The portrait, this is really the second portrait with the XM one, and he's got, you know, nice beastly hair strands. They look great. The teeth are done amazing. The tongue is glistening. All right, you got the glasses on this one, the eyebrows, the expression looks very good. He's raging. It fits the pose. Now this would be the regular portrait, or the one that you mostly see in the shots. And there's not a huge difference other than the glasses and the hair, right? The fur. You can see it there, right? It's a little more like well put together. The strands, great attention to detail on the teeth, glistening tongue, whited out eyes. So while they're not too different, they they offer a little bit of variety, not a whole lot. And here's the way this one looks, the regular one. I personally like the exclusive or the other one a little better, because it's a little bit fuller. but I think it looks great. So as far as sculpt, it looks fantastic. The fur looks really good. The paint job is super clean. Very little to complain about. The paint choices, it's a darker blue. It looks good. They go for a little more realism. But the attention to detail on the fur is outstanding on this piece. The pose looks more like, I don't know, in my opinion, like a Wolverine pose than even Beast. And it doesn't tell a Beast story, it's just him in action. But it looks good. It's well done. Now, he's quarter scale, but the pose doesn't help him, right? Because he's squatting, plus he's 2 inches off the ground, where the Sideshow one is 6 inches off the ground, and he's stretched out doing acrobatic stuff. So there's your difference, really. Even though this one may be a little bit smaller, the pose and where he's on the base doesn't help him at all. Now, as for Sideshows, the nails are painted matte, not glossy like the XM. I do like the matte a little bit better. And the blue has different highlights and different shades of almost like a purplish. The fur is done very well. It's just not as consistent as XM's on that sculpt, right? Fur's done well. The shading's done very nicely on the Sideshow one as well. And the muscle definition is there. I do like that in Sideshow sculpt, his hands are larger, his limbs are longer, and they seem more beastly. Where the XM one's a little more, everything seems to fit a little more. His limbs are not any longer as they really should be, because Beast has longer limbs. And here we take a look at the left hand. The fingers are curled. Nails are done well. The muscle definition is great. Here's some of that purplish blue highlight. That's also going to be on his portrait. There you go. Again, great anatomy, great muscle definition. The fur is done very well. But there's like parts of it where it's a little too smooth, right? You can see it here. It's smooth. This bicep is a little smoother. On this bicep, it's a little better. So it's a little bit more inconsistent on this sculpt than it is on XM's. But I like the shading better on Sideshows because everything gets a little more highlighted. The muscles do. Just take a look at his rib cage here, right? And then the chest. Again, I really like the paint job on Sideshows. Brighter blues, and then the highlights just look a little bit better. But again, it's a little smooth in spots where I wish they had a little more fur. The trunks, they're one piece, right? You don't have a belt going through belt buckles, or loops, I should say, right? It's a little more smooth, more comic accurate. They're not going for lifelikeliness here. They're going for comic accuracy, and they did a good job of that. Paint job is very clean, mostly until you get to where the trunks meet the legs. They got a little sloppy here on this side, not terribly so, but enough where I notice. And they're a little bit on the tighter side, like they're squeezing his legs, where on the XM one, it seems to fit a little better. And I like how it's raised and you can separate them a little bit better. Here it sort of blends in a little bit more. Still looks good, but. And then of course the knees look good. The tendons, the fur, everything like I mentioned before, looks very good. So the pose in 2D looks a little wonky, right? Which is what people had a problem with on this. But when you're looking at a 2D image of a 3D statue, it's very deceptive. When you have it in front of you, it makes sense a lot more. Even the XM one, right? It's a little flat because it's 2D, but these are 3D items, and when you have them in front of you, they look completely different. The portraits on Sideshows they seem bigger than the XM ones, and they're very, very different, right? This is comic accurate. He looks like he has human qualities here, where the XM one, he looks more beastly. I do like the purple bluish highlights on the hair. It's throughout the piece. It's just very subtle, right? So you see it mostly here because it's bunched up and concentrated, but that purple blue is throughout the piece. So it makes sense when you look at it as a whole, rather than just focusing on the hair on his portrait, which looks good. On Sideshows, you do have irises, you have actual eyes, where the XM gave you whited out eyes on both portraits. The glasses, there's a half moon reading glasses on the collector portrait, and you have his mutton chops. Again, great definition. The teeth are comic-like, they're not lifelike. So the teeth on XMs are a lot better because they look a lot more realistic. The glasses are done better on Sideshows because the colors choices and the sculpt really stand out. His eyes are looking at the beaker, so they did a nice job of where the eyes are pointed. The expression is there, he's concentrated. So it looks really good. The back looks good, the anatomy, the muscles. There's really nothing not to like about the Sideshow one, in my opinion. So here's the exclusive on Sideshows where he looks more feline-like, and you have, well, cat-like eyes, right? Where a full reading glasses rather than the half moon, which they gave you on the collector edition. You see the teeth definition isn't really there. There's nothing there to talk about. The fur is a little more, feline-like. So they gave you a different option where he looks more like a cat here, where the XM, they both look very similar. There's not much of a reason to swap them. Now, personally, I'm not really going to use the exclusive too much. It doesn't do much for me, but in person it does look good. So as far as sculpt on Beast goes, I prefer the Sideshow, but the XM, the XM was first done a little bit better. Now to wrap it up. So in closing, I'm gonna pick one. I would stay with the Sideshow one because I think it's just a better representation of Beast overall. Plus, I think the base tells a great story. The color choices really pop. For me, it fits better in my collection. I will acknowledge there are better things on the XM one, such as the teeth on the portrait. The portraits are done well. The fur looks better on XMs. It's painted very well. It's more realistic. And everything's done, like I said, very, very well. It does not do itself any favors. The squatty pose and the fact that he's basically off the ground, only 2 inches off the ground, doesn't help him. He looks small, and it's just an action pose. It doesn't tell a great story about Beast. Where the Sideshow one, I think the choices of the wood with the blue of his body and everything around it just looks better. I know the pose is a little bit wonky. It isn't for everybody, but in 3D, it's amazing, and it really speaks of Beast, right? He's a scientist. The sculpt I also like on Sideshow better because he's stretched out. Even though he's doing some acrobatics, you can see the rib cage. There's a lot of details, a lot to look at. Plus the much more interesting statue between the beakers, all the reading material, the base. I just think Sideshow did a much better job. But if you have a setup where all your X-Men are in action and you don't have the space, the XM one will do. So like I said before, XM, a lot of the stuff is a little bit better. The fur's better. It's painted very well. But ultimately, it just doesn't tell the story of Beast, where I think Sideshows does a better job. Plus the color choices on Sideshows speak to me a little bit more. So in closing, I picked the Sideshow one, but the XM is well made. It just doesn't do itself any favors with the pose, and it just looks more like a Wolverine than a Beast to me, his pose. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you prefer? I look forward to hearing from you. Till next time.